Welcome back, future millionaires. Adrian Scheremer here today with my co-host again, Rob Delavan. And today we are going to be chewing into a topic that we're seeing pop up quite a bit. You know, as we enter summer, prices do tend to tip up a little bit in the warmer months. And so it's really amplifying this problem that people are having. They're saying, hey, and this is the question I'm going to pose to you, Rob, as a more of an expert in this field than me, which is, hey, is this is this a bubble? And B, you know, is there some truth to maybe an idea that sometimes people kick around of, well, what if I wait to buy a house? What if I wait and find a dip? And where are dips and why do they happen? And how do I be one of the clever people that buys low and sells high?
Right. So there's a couple concepts there, and good morning also to our gigantic audience across the universe. A couple concepts there. Number one is the bubble piece. Mm-hmm. And the way we've actually had this conversation specifically with the affordability index.
Yes.
And yep. I truly believe that this bubble concept has to do with the relationship between what rents would be versus what monthly payments are. And for our audience, for a deep dive into that, you guys can search the podcast regarding the affordability index.
Yep, so, that's one of my favorite episodes. Oh, yeah. Tons of info packed into that one.
That was fun, and we'll probably revisit that sooner than later because we get asked that question all the time.
It's a cool data set.
But then we dive in deeper here to the second question, and the second question is, okay, if all else was the same, and you were purchasing, and you're just trying to time the market, what do seasons look like? And then, frankly, we have an interesting data set to share with you guys today that has to do with the pandemic and what did that do, and statistically. So to set up this conversation, I'm going to be sharing my screen for those of you that are actually listening and watching. For those of you that are listening only podcast, we will try to make it easy to follow. Mm-hmm. But we chose Beaverton, Oregon as our target for this conversation. Frankly, there was it's relatively it's a suburb of Portland. It's relatively well known because Nike, their world headquarters are there.
Yep.
And
Intel also has a tremendous amount of their manufacturing industry there.
Exactly. And so anybody who's followed sports figures within Nike, all the biggest sports figures in the planet, in the universe, have flown in and out of Hillsborough Airport because it has private jet capability. Yeah. And they all visit the Nike World campus.
Yeah.
But the idea here is right now, the inventory for this small town or suburb of Beaverton is 71 properties as we speak. This is as of May 3rd, 2021. And this is residential properties. And I might as well bump over here and start sharing our screen. Mm-hmm. And that would be, here we go. So I'll have you ask some questions about the statistics here, but 71 properties is the inventory. It's a strong seller's market, almost at 100% seller. A buyer's market is like 0 to 30. Seller's market is 30 to 100, and they're at 98. I won't dive into all the reasons for that other than just prices are up and inventory is low. And interest rates are low. So there's a whole lot more buyers than there are sellers right now in the city of Beaverton, Oregon.
And I think it's important to note here, we're looking at what is this? It's an almost 2-year window. So the data set that we're looking at, for those who don't have the visual here, we're looking at we're going back to like April, May of 2018. No, it's a 3-year window. I'm sorry.
Yeah. 18, 19, 20.
3-year window.
We're into 21. So what we're looking at here is there's peaks and valleys. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to run you through some peaks and valleys here, and then you're going to ask me scenarios, Adrian.
Yep.
So in June 22nd, and I'm following the 90-day rolling average of median list price.
Okay.
And the 90-day rolling average of median list price in June of June 29th of 2018, we peaked, and in Beaverton, and the 90-day average was about 505. Then you go down to November, the valley here, November 9th, it was about 467. That was September or November of 2018.
So pretty wide berth. We're talking about $100,000 spread.
Well, 505 all the way down to 467. So what? 30,
sorry, a
40,
$50,000 spread.
Yeah, high 40s, something like that. And then April 26th in 2019 was the high, and that was 529. So consider the peak from the previous year. It was 505 or so. Now it's 529. And then that was in April of 2019. And then it dropped again and it was down to 479 in November of 2019. And it valleyed out. And then we peaked again April 10th of 2020, 540. So you can see the drops. And then I'll stop there just because there is a pandemic element of this.
So that's the normalcy. Would you say that that's
yes?
Previous to that data point you stopped at, that's it. That's the typical. We're seeing a swing winter to summer.
Yeah, exactly. And you're seeing, this swing, and it's roughly, I mean, you're looking at like 5 to 10%, depending on the year. And it does swing. Now, this is median list price, and we can look at average days on market action index, all sorts of different things here.
Sure.
But I'm just trying to keep it simple for conversation purposes. This is not the end all be all. This is just how do we guide ourselves in if you wanted to time the market. So let's explain this a little bit more. So in Oregon, okay, we have nice summers, great springs, summers, actually not a lot of rain in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
And we have rainy, wet winters. Okay.
So first indicator, weather just
Yes.
simply makes it easier to shop, easier to move.
Right.
It's a better time.
Right.
I'd rather move in the summer.
Versus, say, Phoenix, Arizona, right?
Sure. This is going to be a flatter graph.
People do not want to move during the summer if they can help it based on weather and that sort of thing. Now,
yes.
But here's the thing that, Beaverton, Oregon and Phoenix, Arizona would also have in common is schools. Generally speaking, a good portion of transactions are driven by family changes, right? Marriages, divorces, births, deaths, jobs, relocations, all of the things, what we call life change intersections. So what we have here is the second thing in Oregon is the school year. People want to move towards the end of spring, early summer. Sure. Because they want a certain segment of the population wants their kids to be all set up for school in the fall.
Yes.
So that's also explained. So in a normal year, Oregon has these two big drivers. Okay. Now Phoenix is going to also have that, but the weather thing, is maybe going to detract from that. Like you said, it's going to be a flatter graph.
But you do still have that family influence. I imagine
exactly.
Most people do not want to move in the middle of a school year. I mean, you've had thousands of clients run through your brokerage at this point. And that changes the demographic then too, right? Of the average person buying in the summer, the average person buying in the winter. Because I feel like I could look at this if I were a full-blown layman and I could say, gosh, it sounds like I should just buy in the middle of the winter. Houses are cheaper then, right?
And that's the point is, because of this, just the socioeconomic realities, right? If you bought in, April, May, June of 2019, you were going to pay more than if you bought in October, November, December of 2019. So this is probably the key takeaway. And again, everybody's going to differ. You need to make sure that you're looking at your local market with a extremely accomplished and capable real estate broker in general, unless you're that in real estate in general yourself. But yes, you can, if you buy in the spring, summer and do what everybody does, you're going to pay more than if you bought in the wintertime. Now, granted, you're going to have higher inventory in the spring, summer than you would in the winter. So,
but also more competition.
Exactly. So, which is what drives up the price. So this concept exists probably easier in a vacuum rather than in reality, because do you want to, finish out the half of the school year. I mean, just to save 40, 30, $50,000. Well, maybe you do. But some people, and I would say, obviously, based on the graph, the majority of people are going to be in a situation where they're going, hey, I'm still going to move because I'm not going to move my family until spring, summer.
Yeah.
So that's the piece is, and this comes back to this concept. And I believe we've mentioned it before in other episodes, but
yeah,
we're going to probably say it more and more is, if you do the things the way other people don't, live and do things like no one else, you're probably going to have different results than if you're following the, it's hard to say this nicely, but kind of the flock, right? The flock of sheep. And this is what this graph is illustrating here, is there is a flock mentality where, just because of, like I said, socioeconomic realities, more people, there's going to be more demand to buy in the spring, summer. So
absolutely.
This is just a big way. So think about this. Like, Adrian, if you're going to buy 5 houses over the next 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And every single one of them you bought on the low and sold at the high, right? You could set up your life intentionally.
This is what I think investors think. Yes.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
And every single time you bought and sold, and it was 5 times. So let's just say 10 transactions. And it was
could you save 50,000 each? Yeah. And could you save 500,000? And I think the answer is perchance it could be no, because this is one of my favorite things about this piece of data. And this is how data can sort of lie to you. We uncover this all the time, right? We just talked about, what are the indicators here? Why are the median prices low? Is it because because the problem with this is it doesn't tell you what all those houses are. And this is why I love how you're scrolling up to one of my favorite chunks of the data. And it's that third one down, price per square foot.
Right.
Price per square foot doesn't encounter nearly as much chaos as the median line. And the reason for that is because, like we just mentioned, families are moving in the summer. So of course the median price is going to be higher, because the average person, the average buyer, is now someone who needs a 4-bedroom house and not a 2-bedroom house.
Right.
And the couples without kids or with preschool children who have no, influence, right, from that factor of what is going to happen with school. Is little Timmy going to get ripped out from his friends and dropped in the middle of a new teacher?
Sure.
Is totally pulled out of the equation. And then we look at price per square foot and it trends much more smoothly. So can you get a better deal in the winter? Yes. Yeah. Is it the actual $50,000 spread indicated?
Maybe not. Depends. And it's deal by deal.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to not follow the crowd,
absolutely,
there is opportunity there. Now, I think we should probably save for another episode. This is actually some fascinating data right here. And it's April 10th, 2020, and then a dip. And then actually the high of that year was September 18th of 2020. Let's go down that rabbit trail in another episode.
Yeah.
But that's
that 6-month mark after the March, I think March was really the peak of awareness, right? And that's when people started working from home, and when restaurants started shutting down, and that's when we saw the world shift a bit.
Right. So what ends up happening is we can look at that data specifically, but what ends up happening here is, if you then took that, say, 500,000 theoretical dollars by doing 10 transactions of always selling at the spring, summer, and always buying in the winter, and then did that over that 20 years, well, if you do a quick time value of money, that quickly becomes $1 million or more just by timing the market. Yeah. So this is where, and every market is different. Times change. Some winters not so much as far as drops, and then inventory, all of those things. So this is very much a buyer looking at a property, piece of residential real estate, more as a commodity than as like that perfect dream house, because frankly, that doesn't exist.
Sure.
Because that's your perfect dream house today, right now, is going to be very different than your perfect dream house, maybe even a year from now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's another concept to look at. look at when it comes to this sort of thing. But in the abstract, is it possible? Yes. Is it super likely? Maybe, maybe not. But it's one of those hacks that if you can live and be intentional about not following the herd.
It's the sum of the parts concept,
exactly.
right? We've been talking about all these things that they sound like, just a little bit of extra margin here and there, but there's a lot of people who get very wealthy in very thin margins like that. So maybe perhaps more often on average than people do on these sort of overnight tricks, right? There is no. That's why it's called the Get Rich Slow podcast. People, we're taking it full circle. It's the reality that it's a bunch of little deliberate changes to strategy. And you're right, kind of seeing people walk in one direction and going, okay, so there's a void over there now. All those people just walked out of that room. Now that room's got a different crowd. Maybe that's a good place for me to be. If you want to be an investor who bounces from winter to winter purchasing properties, you're probably going to pay a little bit less than someone who opts to purchase in the summer.
Right.
And there'll be the con of lower inventory for you to sop through and filter out, but you also won't be elbow to elbow with every family that wants to grab a property, trying to fight over each piece with someone who can maybe write a better letter than you because they're not an investor.
Exactly. So I love that summary, Adrian. Thank you for that. I think this is just another fun hack that hopefully it's valuable to you as our audience, and we'll dive deeper on some of the other pieces of this particular report that we shared. So also I need to mention thank you to Fidelity National Title for that report.
Yep,
it's
thanks,
something
guys.
that I get every week, and we always like to give credit for the folks that are giving us our data points.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. See you out there next week, future millionaires.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.